He is. But he called me up and he said, if you need, if you need someone to stand in to keep us from falling out of a form, that he would show up. And so what I think Jeff is gonna do is he's gonna accept another term, but only show up when we need him to.
What happened with Jeff?
Thanks, Fred.
I was just asking.
10 seconds.
So when is his term up?
Now.
Oh, but would he legally be allowed to come if we needed him?
Yeah. If he accepts his term. She hasn't yet.
Right.
All right. Okay, welcome to the Village of Rybrook Planning Board meeting. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Welcome again. My name is Rob Goodman. I'm Chair of the Planning Board. Board members also in attendance tonight, Scott Mendelson, Amy Schoen, and John Gerzan. Also in attendance is our village attorney, George Alessandratos, Superintendent of Public Works, Michael Nowak, village planning consultant from Hardesty and Hanover, Sarah Brown, and in spirit, our village planning secretary who makes things run behind the scenes, Tara Orlando. And last, far from least, is David Heiser, our liaison from the Board of Trustees.
Still my heart.
That's right. How many? It's embarrassing how many times I would have forgotten you if you add up.
What do you mean, how many? Every time I have to kick you.
Every time. Every time. Yeah, that's right.
Every
John was
time.
leaning over to give me the signal.
That's because I gave John the signal.
Well done. Okay. In the minutes, I gather from Tara that the minutes will be on for next month. Correct. All right, that's fine. So our first application is 900 King Street. And I think there have been, if I recall.
Open a public hearing?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Can I have a motion, a second to open the public hearing, please?
Moved.
Second,
Mr. Grzan?
yes.
Mr. Mendelson?
Yes.
Michonne?
Yes.
Chairman Goodman?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, sir. Give
Good
us the update.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the
Thank you.
board. David Steinmetz from the law firm of Zarin Steinmetz here once again, representing Sunrise Senior Living. Just so you're clear, our entire team is here. I'm joined tonight once again by our clients from Sunrise, Clyde McGraw and Colin Buckley, my colleague Vincent Padone, Stuart Lax, and Valerie Mutterpearl from our project architectural team, Anthony Nestor from JMC, our project engineers and planners, and Rick Parisi, our project landscape architect. We did a fairly thorough presentation when we were here last month. Just as a reminder, we are here specifically with regard to amended PUD approval. The project itself was approved back in 2021. There were a few specific or technical changes that we walked you through at the last meeting. We can go back and do that again if you need, but that is not our intention. We want
Right.
to try to do a fairly efficient presentation. It is a public hearing, and hear the comments that are to be presented. We want you to also know that since we met with you, we did have a presentation and met with the Architectural Review Board. We have been also working on responding to some engineering and fire department issues that arose, and we're pleased with how that is unfolding. I also want to make sure your board knows that one of the comments that we got from Mr. Oliveri, your outside consulting engineer, were concerns about water service and Veolia water department or water company.
That was
We
my
have been in touch with Veolia, and I want the record to reflect that we are aware that Veolia is concerned that there could be a lack of capacity on portions of the village. We are aware of that. We are analyzing that, working in conjunction with Veolia. As far as we're concerned, we know we do not have a project without that water, so we acknowledge and expressly would anticipate a condition of approval that we need to have water service from Veolia before construction would commence. So as
Yeah.
far as we're concerned, that is not an issue for tonight. We acknowledge and appreciate Mr. Olivieri making sure we were aware. I have been in touch with the village manager on this very topic already. That is not something that we're prepared to deal with tonight. In fact, it's really, at the moment, being studied by your water company.
Have you been in touch with Con Ed?
Con Ed's-
Regarding gas?
Yes, we have. We have confirmation.
So we'll get to that,
Okay.
we'll get to that when Anthony gets up. So we are aware of the Con Ed, the prior moratorium, the changes that have occurred, and we will address that. What we really wanted to do tonight, we wanted to address some of the questions that you specifically presented to us at the last meeting about some of the changes. Specifically, you asked some questions about the sizes of some of the units, how that compared. We are gonna walk through that. We have an architectural presentation. We have some engineering drawings that we can walk through. But again, tonight is specifically a public hearing as far as we're concerned on the changes. We are not here to conduct a public hearing on a project that was already approved, and it remains valid and subsisting. So we want to walk through those changes. We have, Stuart, you're gonna take the next piece.
Yeah.
We're gonna walk through the architecture first. We're happy to answer any questions. Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman.
Oh, I know that Mr. Oliveri circulated a memo on April 8th. Have you seen that?
Yes.
He basically said that the issues seemed to be addressed, but he proposed 2 conditions. Are those conditions acceptable?
I'm gonna let Mr. Anthony Nestor from JMC address that when he gets up. I
Okay.
think they are. And again, most of Anthony's concerns, we were pleased, we were able to address those before he wrote that second
Right.
memo.
Right.
And one of his 2 express conditions related specifically to Veolia.
Right.
Which is why I
Exactly.
want you to hear that. We're very well aware of that.
Yeah,
All
okay.
right, so I'm gonna turn it over to Stuart. Our entire team is here to answer questions, and we look forward to conducting the public hearing and making sure we're complete on these amended issues.
Sure.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Stuart Lax, Perkins Eastman, project architect.
Stuart,
Yeah.
when you go over the plans, the 2 things I'm in particular interested, I would like to see a comparison of the floor plan of the townhouses prior and now. And then if you could give me an overview of the parking for each of the 3 living facilities.
Okay.
General overview about the parking.
Okay. I will.
And I'm sure somewhere along the way you will address the comment that was raised in the letter Snyder on behalf of Yarbors, where the height of the building.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
The maximum height.
maximum height.
Those are the 3 items
was-
that are of
Yeah,
interest to me.
I don't have a presentation board on that one. That was addressed in the last time.
Was that
Wasn't
point
it?
going to be raised in your referral to the Architectural Review Board?
It was supposed to.
It
be,
was,
yes.
yeah, okay, good.
So this plan, I'm not sure how well you can see it, but the plan on the left is what was approved. This is specifically dimensions between the townhouses. On the left is the plan as approved in 2021.
That's too, I cannot make a head or tail of that. Honestly, I don't know what I'm looking at there. Could you just give me a floor plan of the
Yeah,
townhouses?
so that's a different, there was a question about proximity of the townhouses between one another, and this is really just to show you the setbacks at the rear to the wetlands have not changed. The setback off of Arbor Drive and the property line have not changed. The setbacks also, to the wetlands to the west have not changed. Really just some minor dimensional changes between the townhouses. So the locations of the townhouses are substantially similar to what they were before.
And Stuart, our building-to-building separation is still building code and zoning
Yeah,
compliant?
it's all, that is all remains compliant, yes.
So the numbers like 8 feet, I guess 2 inches, is that the distance between the units?
That is between the units, in that 8'2" and becomes 9'6", I think that's actually,
Yes, yes.
front patio to front patio, that's not even building corner to building corner. In some locations, it's building corner, in some locations, it's patio where the patios were a little closer.
Now,
We
the
sort of keep
second
them close.
parking lot, you have expanded the parking in the front of the building, correct?
Correct. We've gone from.
So there are
this-
two parking adjacent to each other for each building? Or is there one parking by the building and one to the side?
There, it is, here, actually, that may show up on the, not really easier to show, but, on the next plan, but, it's sort of as in a house, there was a driveway, with a car space and a parking garage, and that was 2 spaces. We've now made the parking garage accommodate 2 cars, and therefore the driveway has also been widened to accommodate 2 cars. And that's for each townhouse, not for each building, because each building contains 2 townhouses.
And how did the layout of the second floor changed by bringing the master bedroom down to the ground floor?
Hasn't really.
We didn't bring the master down, the
we
master
didn't bring-
was already down.
Yeah, the
let's
master
be clear.
bedroom was already down, it was one of the other bedrooms. That space remains, but it is no longer a bedroom, it does not meet the building code requirements of a bedroom, it's really just a den.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Snyder and Snyder raised that question. Is there a possibility that that space could be turned into a 4th bedroom?
I'm gonna let you-
Our answer to that, Mr. Grzan, is that it can't be because it won't have a closet and it will be like any other room, which would be a den. That is an issue of enforcement for the village, obviously, and the
Is it-
irony, hang on,
now-
I just want to give you the second half of my answer, because I didn't want to have to say this, but in light of your question and the comment from Leslie, the irony is when we engaged in our discussions with the Arbors was candid with us, and they told us that condition actually has occurred in a number of the townhouse units at the Arbors. So, quite frankly, I don't know why they would push that issue, but our residents, they're not gonna be designed for that. We have no intention of doing that. And
yeah.
nobody's going to be having their
Yeah.
children living with them. So, we will have a lovely den upstairs, but there will certainly not be a second bedroom upstairs.
Michael, is
I mean,
there,
an additional bedroom.
Michael, if the homes are designed as a 3-bedroom house, and we all know that if there is a space, we as an owners are going to convert that space to the 4th bedroom. Do they need a permit from you to do that?
So a building permit would be required for alterations to the interior of the structure, yes.
Now, if we don't want the 4th bedroom, can we put that in the approval resolution?
Supposing you outbuild a closet instead of inserting it into the room. Supposing somebody
I-
wanted to build a closet
I mean, my
on
view
the
is that
outside wall.
this is a building department issue. This is an interior, we're an interior issue that the building department would have the jurisdiction to decide whether or not it's appropriate under the code to do it or not do it. I don't really think it's a planning issue, really, except to the extent that it affects the footprint and the dimensions of the
Right.
homes
Right.
themselves. But if it's a matter of redistributing and reconfiguring the interior, I mean, people can do whatever they want to do, subject to whatever the authorities say.
Well, except that I think it would be a planning issue in that you're inviting more people to live there, including more parking now, so there's gonna be more cars, there's gonna be more
I
traffic.
couldn't agree more with you,
There's gonna
Scott,
be, you're creating living space and accommodating it with both the living
That's
space
not-
and the
but-
parking.
But that's not what its intention is. And if people do that and they do it illegally, it is an enforcement issue.
So our code does have regulations on how much parking is needed for a structure, so obviously that would be a building department enforcement issue. No different than any other development, homeowners can apply for a permit for certain things unless there are restrictive covenants or something in
My-
place.
my-
A person could,
My
potentially
question
apply.
is very simple, addressed to the village attorney. Can we specify in a resolution that this is a 3-bedroom home?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, but I don't. Can you? I mean, theoretically, you can do anything. Whether or not it's valid is another issue.
It would
but
be more difficult for the building department later on to issue a
Well,
permit to
we don't-
change that to a bedroom.
Not necessarily, because the building department would look at what's permissible under the code. So the site plan approval is on the structure. It's on, you know, how many units are proposed, how many parking spaces are proposed. Does it all comply with zoning? Whether or not someone goes back and says, there's a big closet here, I want to make it a bedroom, goes to the building department and they say, you can or you cannot, because based on whatever the code says. If they do make it a fourth bedroom anyway, or a fifth bedroom, or a sixth, that's an enforcement issue in as much as the building department and the village will have to go out and say, you're not allowed to do this. The reality is, and I'm not suggesting that anyone does this, but things happen every day. You can't necessarily be on someone at their front door every day and say, I'm monitoring you. So that's why we say it's an enforcement issue in as much as it comes down to down the road.
And if I could try to put the board at ease, and follow George's comment, unlike other properties in the village, this one is a senior living community. It's a 62 and over, it's age restricted, it's rental.
Right,
I
but
think that's the key word. That is the key
That
word,
is the
rental.
key.
Yes,
I didn't want to
yes.
interrupt you while you were.
You did put me at ease.
So, okay, then I'll
Thank
stop
you.
right there.
Yes, please.
While it's lovely to have some extra room,
Yes. Okay, let's
Mom's
move
not
on.
gonna be having my grandkids living there.
They can have a convertible sofa.
They can visit, they're legally allowed to visit, but they're not living there.
Mr. Stewart, he was going to walk me through the parking for each of the facilities.
And I'm trying to think what would be the best plan to do that with.
Just summarize the number of parking that you have, what's required, is it all in the building, is it outside the building?
No, I don't know, I got that. Well, no. Because it's.
You okay? You good? Once we're jumping ahead. Would it help students to just make the presentation?
Yeah. How many slides do you have in your presentation?
Yeah.
Is it better if you just go through it and then,
Oh.
instead of jumping
Yes,
around?
that
I
would be
know the
helpful.
board may have questions, but
Yeah,
I feel like
I'm-
you have your presentation, why don't you go through it?
You're
and
right.
then-
That's right.
Then circle
Yeah,
back,
yeah.
rather than
Oh,
hop.
no, no, I didn't mean you to answer that at the beginning. I just want, when you get to that area, just highlight it for me.
Thank
That's
you.
what I meant. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Keep it flow.
Keep it, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Really, just the next slide, which sort of answers the question that was raised last time. The change in the footprint of the relocating of the bedroom and the expansion of the garage does not change the overall height of the townhouses. I will make note that we have dimensioned this based on the dimension to the ridge of the townhouse. The village code actually measures building height on a sloped roof to the midpoint of the roof. But just for convenience and simplicity's sake, we've done this to the peak. But that 29.6 applies at top row. Actually, I'm sorry, the left column is the townhouses as designed and presented in 2021, and then the two in the middle and on the right are the townhouses as now contemplated, and in this submission. And then just lastly, there was a comment about
You like the windows, huh?
I
appearance of
can't
the
stand the
building.
windows.
This is one of the renderings we presented to the ARB and received favorable comment on them. We think it's an attractive and inviting place to live. So, and that's really the extent of my submission. Should we go to
Yeah, let's go to
Anthony
Anthony.
and then
Let's go to
Luke?
Anthony.
Okay.
Thanks, right? You just lighten up the world.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board, staff. My name is Anthony.
Can you speak louder, please?
Yeah, you're in the
Affirm
mic.
both.
There we go.
I don't think that's working anyway. I know, it doesn't come over on the TV either.
Well, they disconnected.
That's why.
Oh, I'm just,
Speak louder.
No, it should be working on its own.
okay. Well, I'll be brief with regards to Mr. Oliveri's comment memo of April 8th and with regards to the conditions that he had recommended in his memorandum. So the first comment that he had is in regard to the will serve letter, and I believe Mr. Steinmetz has eloquently and adequately addressed that comment to board and his opening remarks. And the second comment is in regards to the health department with regards to the sanitary sewer. We have no issue, the plan will not change one way or the other with regards to the design and where the sewer is located. It's just a matter of whether there will be easements required on site, or will, as we hope and planned on, is preparing a maintenance and operation agreement satisfactory to the village for the maintenance of the sewer.
Michael, pardon, Mr. Nestor, does it matter to the village if it's owned by the owner or it's owned by the village?
To me, it doesn't matter. The arbors in itself, by approval, is responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of their sewers. We as a village have easements over those pipes for enforcement and for inspection reasons. So it doesn't matter to me.
But any problem in the future between the connection point, where the village connection point, and the property, who's responsible? They are responsible.
That
If
would
they-
be dependent on the agreement.
Yes.
As of right now, it's a private lateral, so it would be responsible.
So why would the
by
Westchester County be reluctant to approve a privately owned sewer line?
So there's language in the law with regards to how a sewer line operates, whether it's operating as a commercial entity or residential entity. So there's language in there which may dictate. This is a little bit of a unique situation because they're tying into a sewer line that goes into a private development, so which has been approved as private, which has been approved as private sewers with the maintenance by the arbors. So that's gonna be something that we're gonna have to work out, but I don't foresee a problem with that.
All right.
Mike, that can be addressed in this agreement. I don't know if you had anything else.
And I think that was about it, but I did want to ask, while I'm up here too, with regards to Con Edison and the gas service, we have just conversations with Con Edison, and we have, I believe, an agreement with regards to providing gas service and electric to the property.
Even though New York State law,
As far
Is
as
what it
we
is now.
have- We have documentation from Con Edison saying that they're going to provide us with gas service.
So what was your?
We had made service, an application for service during the original approval and
Right.
before the moratorium took effect. So we
Yeah.
technically were in line with their, and grandfathered into the process with regards to
Okay.
property.
Who is going to address Mr. Oliveri's comments with regard to the stormwater management?
So we have addressed all of Mr. Oliveri's
I don't know, but
conversation.
he did respond that you may have to do additional,
That was part of the original
yeah.
approval as well.
once the demolition takes place, yeah.
I can, yep.
Okay.
The location of the proposed facility that we're proposing is within the footprint of the existing building. So
Yeah.
obviously, we could not test in that exact
Okay.
location. So what we did is we provided testing just outside the building as close as we
Okay.
could and based our design off of that information. So Mr. Oliveri is just saying, once the building is demolished, that we just need to confirm
Right.
that the information that we have designed is proper and adequate.
Right, that you're referring to, I
His
think.
last comment.
You are 3 and 4.
Correct.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, I think when I read through their response to Oliveri's letters, I feel that the comments or questions that were left from the previous approval are pretty much addressed.
I think that was Mr. Olivieri's
Yes.
assessment as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that should be kind of behind us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the board?
did the Architectural Review Board address the windows at all?
Yes, sorry, Valerie Motterford with Houston, colleague of Stewart's. They did, their general assessment, or comment was that they felt that the building design was much improved from the last time that they saw it, that we had worked hard to address a lot of the arbor's comments in terms of the bulk and the height and reducing that, the overall appearance of it, and that, the architectural detailing on the building, which includes, the roofs and the windows, was, fit in with the area of Rec Brook. We're of course gonna go before them again, but they literally said that
I
it
just
was
think-
much improved and
personal,
look
yeah.
sort of
They,
anymore.
it feels very closed. It feels prison-like. Those windows look like bars. They just are not
I
open.
think they actually said that they didn't think it looked like a
Oh,
jailhouse
okay,
anymore.
well, okay.
I guess reasonable minds may differ, I guess.
Yes, of course.
When I look through the amended plan, I don't have a problem with it. I think it probably there are some improvements which I actually like. So when I try to look, I said, since we have the final approval on this, I said, what do we need to close out before we could decide on moving this forward? I feel that we need an input from the village ARB.
Of course, yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
do we refer that to the ARB and they respond back to us, or do they respond back to board? I don't know who comes first, who comes second here.
I think we actually referred it in the last meeting to the ARB.
We did.
We did, okay,
So,
good.
so the ARB, you know.
And,
is-
yeah, right, we did.
Yeah, the ARB is going to have to come up with an approval, I
Mm-hmm.
assume, whatever they do.
Well,
Next thing that we will need,
that's,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, go ahead,
That's a
finish, Michael,
question for legal though, because typically ARB does not issue approvals until planning board issues a site plan.
I think that's.
So that's just a
Totally
question
right.
for
Yeah,
council
it's
to
a
figure
time-
out.
right, right.
If they're
And-
if the board's looking for a recommendation back from ARB, then maybe that might be possible, but I don't know if they could issue an approval.
Well,
I don't know.
independent, right, I mean, in terms, you're talking about timing, because we have some restrictions as to, I mean, we're gonna have to wait until the secret review is done. We're gonna have to wait, I think the county is coming back with some, a permitting issue that they're addressing, and so we, you know, it's not coming to a vote today, it'll come to a vote next month when all these things are done, and then presumably after that, if once the site plan is approved, at that point, the ARB would get the full project, and then they would evaluate it from the ARB standpoint, so.
And just one point of information that I want to respond to Mr. Grzan, because I spoke with Jen Gray after the ARB meeting. There was some confusion that seemed to play out a little bit at that meeting. The ARB is not actually making a recommendation to you on the site plan. Their jurisdiction is as to the aesthetics.
Architecture,
Exactly,
period.
purely on
That's
materials,
it.
colors, and
They seem to
textures.
forget
Well, that's the
So-
reason why Mike was saying that they need an approved site plan before they can conduct their inquiry.
100% agree with that, and I want to make Mr. Grzan comfortable that you need to approve these technical amendments
It would take
first.
more than,
They're not
it
gonna
would
help
take a
you
little
with
more
that.
than that to make me comfortable on this subject, but that's a different topic.
Um,
The next thing, I think we need the input from the village emergency task force.
Yeah, I think that's in the emergency task force.
And
Fire.
what's village safety housing task force? What is that?
So
What
the
is the what?
emergency task force and this,
Are they one and the same?
yeah. I
Ah,
believe
okay,
so.
because that's the first time I seen that
Yeah,
written down.
We did have a meeting with everybody in the room, and I believe there should be a memo circulating or should be coming out very shortly.
Haven't seen it yet.
I don't believe it
Right.
came out, but yeah, there should be some documentation of that
Good.
meeting, because we had that, what, 2-3 weeks ago?
Yeah, a couple
I
weeks
know
ago.
it was scheduled. I knew it had been scheduled.
Then we need a resolution, which I think we have with regard to the comments from Mr. Oliveri.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes, there are conditions that would be put into the final.
And then the only other two things that I can think of course, would be stormwater management plan
Right.
and a construction plan.
Yeah.
Those are the two documents which, I don't know, Michael, do those two documents have to be submitted before the final approval?
Both of those documents have already been approved.
The
and
construction
reviewed.
management plan needs updating.
Updating?
For what purpose?
Well, they have, the water company is listed as a different company. Go over it. It was,
Well, Veolia is the owner of Suez, so that's
well,
the.
it's there as Suez.
I
Okay.
understand, but
Right.
in the previous approval, the consultants did review a construction management plan, and that was already approved. So if there's updates to it, yeah, that's not a problem,
They're not
updating.
major things. They're
Yeah.
just probably, just titles.
it have-
So the applicant doesn't have to submit
Right.
new documents for
Just
review, because those
updating.
are already approved.
Right.
Just update who the contractors
Right,
are, who
exactly,
the utilities are.
Both
Yeah, I
of
think
which
that's
could
the
be
point.
express conditions in the
Correct.
resolution.
Sure.
So we would have no objection if that gets drafted
Not
into the
at all,
resolution.
right.
On the construction management plan, the name needs to be changed.
Yeah, just so that the cast of characters is the
Your
same.
original resolution for the original approval 4 years ago had how many conditions, Clyde? So
Many, right?
Many.
I read a lot of resolutions.
Many.
You had a lot of conditions in there.
Yeah.
So we're good if you had some conditions on just these amendments.
Right. I think at this point, it's probably, if any members of the public would like to speak to this application?
I guess if-
Yeah.
If you wish, I can address the question on parking.
Oh, yeah, oh, yes, absolutely, yeah.
I was
Sorry-
waiting for that.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
So what I have up is the zoning table from the first page of the civil drawings. I will just quickly read through. Required, which is this column, in terms of required number of parking spaces. For the independent living, 126. That's one space per dwelling unit, 126 dwelling units, 126 spaces. At the assisted living building, it's a half a space per dwelling unit. We've got 85 dwelling units in assisted living, 42 and a half, which rounds up to 43 spaces. And the townhouses require 2.5 spaces per dwelling unit. We have 20 townhouses, that's 50 spaces required, so a total of 219. What we're providing,
Are there any guest parkings?
that is included in
In
the
the-
guest
okay,
parking. That is the calculation from your regulations.
Okay,
But as you will see, we do have some, we're proposing to provide more spaces than are required. For the independent living, we are providing 126 spaces in the garage underneath the building, so they're all protected, plus an additional 7 spaces on grade. And after I go through my numbers, I will flip back to the site plan to give you exactly where those spaces are. For the assisted living building, there are 51 on-grade parking spaces, and again, I'll show you those locations on the site plan. And the townhouses, we're actually proposing 60, as we've talked about. There are 20 townhouses, each one has a 2-car garage. That's 40 garage spaces, and then there are an additional 20 in the driveways, for a total of 60 at the townhouses. 244 in total.
okay.
It's down here, there you go. And I'm going to use Mr. Parisi's site plan just because it's the nicest one to look at. Obviously, the 2 entrances to the garage for all 126 spaces for the independent living building. There is some spaces out at the front entrance, main entry, that could be for visitor start spaces as well. The 51 spaces for the assisted living building are here. They are here and here. And that is it for the independent, assisted living building, all close to the main entrance. And then obviously, for the townhouses, it's 2-car garages and 2-car
Any
driveways.
parking for the assisted living underneath the ground in the building?
No, the assisted living
That-
is.
Isn't that interesting that in the living, where people can move freely, you have it in the basement, but people that need help to get into the building, they outdoor?
I think, yeah.
Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, you are, but actually in our experience, for assisted living and memory care, very, very, very few of our residents.
Well, memory
drive
care for
cars.
sure not.
Yeah.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
I hope they will not be driving.
Nobody make jokes. Nobody make jokes.
So,
Stuart.
yep.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, if there are any members of the public here that would like to address the application, sure, come on up, introduce yourself, and let's look it through.
Good evening, Honorable Chairman and members of the board. My name is Leslie Snyder. I'm a partner in the law firm of Snyder and Snyder. I'm here today on behalf of the Arbors Homeowners Association. As you know, the Arbors will be sharing a road with Sunrise, and you've spent a lot of time back in, I think it was 2021 now, with all the planning board conditions. It seems that Sunrise will be a good partner. We've had a conversation with them, and we're hopeful that we'll continue to work together. There's just some, there's always the devil in the details. So, first of all, I would ask that the applicant be required for all the plans, like these slideshows, if they could make them part of the record, because they submitted some things to the ARB, and they submitted some things to you, and they're a little bit different than what they actually filed with the board. When I get to the devil of the details, it really deals with the height of this building. So if you remember back in 2021, there was a lot of different pictures, and it was like, what is the actual maximum height of the building? And they never showed it. They wouldn't show it for whatever reason, but finally they did, and when the village board approved it, they actually sent it to the architectural review board and said, look, we understand this is the height that they're saying, and it has to do with like the mean height that they were showing, but if there's anything that you could do to lower the height, because when you drive down Arbor Drive, there's going to be now this big building, not a small one, and if there's anything that you could do to reduce the height, we'd like you to consider it. Well, this board, and I commend you, you sent it to the architectural review board, and at their meeting, which was a special meeting, which thank God we found out about it, they actually reviewed the height, and they started asking questions like, what actually is the size of the mechanical equipment you have to keep up there? The one nice thing that I have to say Sunrise did is originally they had this huge building, and they had all these dormers, and it was very imposing. And they got rid of the dormers. I mean, they're really working, and I applaud them for it. They've done, a great job trying to change a design of a building. I think someone called it a cell. I've heard other things about it, but they really are working towards using nicer materials. But we would really ask this board to please, before you approve anything, let's find out what the actual height of the mechanical equipment is and see if there's anything we can do to lower the height of the building. The second thing that was asked, and this is also a site plan consideration, was the berm.
You don't mean lowering the building, you mean lowering the equipment of the roof.
Right, so that maybe
Because
then they
you
could
can't
change
lower the building
slightly the
anymore.
facade. The reason why that it's very imposing
Yes.
at the top and goes very high up, I forgot what the last number is, maybe we could ask them to put it, because it's not on their plans, what the actual height. So when you look at the building, you're gonna see the top of the building, and it's pretty high. But I think if their mechanical equipment is not that big, maybe they don't need to have all that covering to make it, I'm sure they're trying to make it imposing, to make it look grand, and I totally understand that. Look, they've got a product to sell, and people want to go to a nice facility, and we respect that. But anything that they could do to sort of try to lower that a little bit would be great. The other thing, and I know it's expensive, and they don't want to do it, but maybe there's some other technique, is there's a berm. So when you drive up Arbor Drive, there's a small berm, but if the berm was slightly extended, then it wouldn't be like you drive up and there's this jarring building that you're gonna look at to the right. If you could extend the berm, you may not see there's still gonna be a big building back there, but it probably won't, it'll be softened. So apparently to extend the berm, I'm learning, is quite expensive. That's why people don't wanna do it. But maybe there's, they've got these great architects and engineers, they've got a great team, maybe there's something else they could do, again, just sort of soften what the look of the building is gonna be for people going down Arbor Drive. Those are really our major issues, issues with like the units and how many people are in the units, I'm sure they'll abide by it. I'm sure if you put you're gonna put a restriction, these are, 3-bedroom units, it'll be what it's gonna be, and we understand that. But we're hopeful that, we're gonna have to be partners somewhat together, because we have a road that we're sharing. And so they're gonna be using our road, we don't want to be disturbing, they don't want to disturb us. So we're very hopeful for that. We just would ask if there's anything we can do, even if there's something we can do collaboratively to look at on the height with the berm. There's also some sidewalk detailing. There was like a very ugly fence. This was all in our letter, my letter dated March 13th, excuse me, to you folks. But there's like our architect had pointed out, there's like some sidewalk detail of a retaining wall they were putting up some kind of like chain link fence over a retaining wall, rather than, you know, you can make retaining walls look a little nicer rather than just have chain link on top of it. So that was just another suggestion, that maybe they could do it with stones, so they won't have to have something of a chain link fence. I know that at the Architecture Review Board meeting, I think Councilperson Epstein was looking for like a sidewalk along Arbor Drive. I don't know what they had, but she's concerned that people are gonna be coming out of Arbor Drive and they're gonna wanna walk. And Arbor Drive's, you know, a busy road. They've got a lot of residents at the Arbors, and they're gonna have a lot of residents here. So, you know, I think though we have a few little details in that, but those are our main concerns. We appreciate you taking the time, and it's unfortunate, the Architecture Review Board did ask a lot of questions and ask for a lot of details, and I didn't see any response back on that. So, I think, you
I mean,
know,
I
obviously.
think they're gonna be reviewing it again for the amendments. But just to that point, I mean, our jurisdiction really relates to the amendments to the plan that have been proposed.
Totally
We're
understood.
really restricted from opening up issues that have theoretically would have been addressed in the original site plan review. So
Right,
some-
except the height was never addressed, because that was something that the village board, when they approved it, they specifically said, we asked that, and I can give you the quote, but we asked that the Architectural Review Board look at the height. The resolution dated September 16 specifically says that the applicant has to secure approval from the Architectural Review Board. During its review, the Architectural Review Board shall determine whether there are any reasonable and feasible options to reduce the roof line of the IL building in a way that maintains screening
I
of the
remember that,
rooftop
absolutely.
mechanicals. But
And
in
they
no
didn't do
event
it.
shall the
They didn't
height
do it.
of the IL building exceed, that's what's shown on the plans.
So are you saying, and I don't know the history of this, was there, the ARB ever come to a resolution?
never
They
completed
did.
They never completed
Because
that
what
review,
happened
that's
was
right.
the
Would that not be a
developer came
planning-
to them,
would that not be a
they
planning
said,
issue?
it looks terrible, and then the developer ran away for 4 years, or 3 years, and, I mean, and you can see that Sunrise has really made an effort to make this a much better project than it previously was, and we applaud them for that. We just would ask if there's any way we collaboratively do anything so
Yeah, I
it'll
mean,
have less of an impact, which I think is part of site plan, because this is sort of like mushed in with it, so to speak.
I think both issues that you raised, Ms. Snyder, the berm and the height, to me, they are planning issues. They're not
I agree with you.
architectural. They're visual, they're planning. Now, I think we really should have the applicant address those issues, both of those issues, to the planning board. Maybe just simply relocating the location of the equipment on the roof. If moving it
and to
away towards the
see-
center, you already kind of scale it down.
yeah, I mean, look, I guess my concern is, and I would need sort of input from council on this, is exactly, you know, what we can address as part of our jurisdiction here. The height of the building may in fact not be something that is in our bailiwick right now, although it may have been. We remember that originally, we were only making reports and recommendations. We did not have the jurisdiction to approve the original site plan. We have jurisdiction now because we are approving amendments. So if it's part of an amendment, then we have jurisdiction over it. If it's not, then it's not. But I think that, and, you know, council can advise us as to, you know, what our purview is in dealing with height and the berm and things like that. I think it you know, it would be good, I think, to get the applicant's, you know, response to some of these issues, because, you know, I think our effort is to be collaborative and for neighbors to try to do the best they can for one another, and I think that they have demonstrated a lot of goodwill and real intelligence in the amendments that they've proposed. So I think their hearts are in the right place if it's reasonable. They're not going to spend huge amounts of money
We totally-
trying to address these issues, but I think there may be some compromises that can be made. I don't know, sir?
Use the microphone.
We're happy to respond.
Please respond to
We're-
this.
And just, you know, just for the record, we're not here to hold them up.
Oh,
We
no,
do
no, no,
wanna
no,
work
no,
with
understood.
collaboratively.
That's what a public
I mean,
hearing is all about.
I think vis-à-vis this, it is a little awkward with the whole site.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
we really need you guys talking into the mic.
Sorry.
Thank you, sorry.
Sorry about that.
It is a little bit weird because the village board approved the site plan with that caveat, which obviously you remembered, and I applaud you for that because it was a long time ago. But there was always this issue about the height, because it was very hard to tell what the maximum height. And now, like, they're changing a few things, the balconies and some other, as part of their plan, so they are opening up the site plan. But again, we want them to hopefully come up with something that they can live with and will be better for the community.
Okay.
So, thank you.
All right.
So just very briefly to respond to Leslie, and I want to start by saying I appreciate her comments. I think she knows and we know, we really have been trying to work collaboratively. Leslie and I know each other for many, many years, and I was pleased to know that she was representing the Arbors, and I hope she was pleased to know I was representing Sunrise. So we have had the back and forth. Specifically on her issues, I'll take the berm first. None of us feel that the building is jarring. I would submit that the building that's there right now, that's
jarring.
probably jarring.
Yeah.
Unsightly,
Yeah.
and we're really excited to bring the Sunrise and the Perkins Eastman building that I know Stuart and Valerie and their colleagues are extremely proud of. We're really happy to bring that to Rybrook. The berm was discussed, debated, years before I was involved in this, approved, and Sunrise believes it's designed to do its job. You all thought it through correctly. The Board of Trustees approved it, so they have chosen not to revisit the berm. We believe that Rick Parisi's landscaping that he has designed and we shared with you at the last meeting, it's really nice landscape. It's a lot of stuff going in, trees, bushes, shrubs, annuals, perennials. There's a lot going in. So anyone that feels that driving on Arbor, is it Arbor Drive? Arbor Drive today isn't the greatest visual approach to the arbors, they're gonna get more than their money's worth with this. So that's our answer on the berm. As far as the height of the building, despite what my friend and colleague Leslie has said on the height was reviewed, approved by the village, it is zoning compliant, and she's 100% right. There was one specific condition in the original resolution. That condition said that they were being referred to the ARB, specifically for the ARB to look at the height, catch this, this is the key, with regard to whether or not the HVAC and mechanicals could be better hidden. It was not about dropping the height.
Right.
The height was approved. We have not exceeded that height. We've demonstrated that to your board. We've demonstrated that to the ARB. And my understanding, and I was not at the ARB meeting, but half of my team was, Chairman Levy looked very carefully at the HVAC units that they were asked to, that my team was asked to describe. He asked exactly what the space that they were going to be dropped into the roof area was. And my understanding, and I defer to you and your professional staff, is that the ARB and specifically the chairman indicated, quote, this issue was closed, that he and the board was satisfied that we had more than, my clients had more than adequately masked the mechanicals. I don't know what George Comfort and Sons did. I don't know what was originally done, but my understanding is that Sunrise has addressed this issue. So we know we needed to deal with that as a condition. We think we have. With regard to our friendly neighbor's request that the building come down further, the answer, unfortunately, but honestly, is no. We expect that they're going to be very pleased with the building, very pleased with the clientele, very pleased with the improvements to the road, very pleased with the sidewalk improvements. And I appreciate the chair's comments earlier. We're here for what I said when I stood up at the first meeting before you, very limited amended site plan approval. We're not here to reopen stuff that apparently spent years through full secret. We're eliminating the Juliet balconies and putting in nice new terraces and balconies. We've reduced the size of the overall building. We have added garage space so that people that are lucky enough to live in the townhouses can actually have 2 cars and keep them indoors. We have moved a bedroom from upstairs, downstairs, so that there is a second bedroom on the main level. Overall, I said one phrase to you in my initial comments. We are not here to make this project bigger. We are here to make this project better. We know Sunrise has made the project better. I would ask, once, if, obviously there may be other comments, but respectfully, we would ask that your board close the public hearing tonight so that we can move forward with the amended approvals.
Well, in terms of timing on that, I mean, we're, I think, held up, so to speak, to await for secret review to be completed, which I think would be next
Understood,
month.
you can't vote for sure,
Right.
Mr. Chairman, we're not asking you to
Right.
vote, and you.
Right, so my preference would be just to keep the public hearing open until next month. I think, you know, I think the main comments of the public have been addressed, unless anyone else has any other comments. Yes, sir?
Dan's not gonna miss an opportunity.
No, I like talking.
And Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yeah.
just, it's obviously up to the board's discretion if they want to keep the public hearing open or close it today. Like Mr. Steinmetz said, a vote cannot be taken before SECR, but I understand that the Emergency Service Task Force, we touched on that earlier, has not issued a memo, so, you know, it's something to consider whether you want to have all the information before closing the
That's,
public hearing.
I mean, I think that's my preference,
Sent an email.
yeah.
So the
Yes, sir.
plan is to keep the public meeting open? until
Yeah.
next month. Okay, good, so then I'm gonna modify what I was gonna say. The only thing that I need to say today then, something came up in conversation and may have nothing to
Excuse
do.
me, your name, please?
Dan Barnett, President of the Arborist HOA,
Okay,
formerly Barry
thank you.
Thomas. So, to reiterate what Leslie was saying, they've been a wonderful breath of fresh air to this process. They have been listening to us. You know, obviously, we're gonna have disagreements, and it happens here, but we are happy with, you know, hopefully this goes through with Sunrise, and they'll be a good partner to us. Something came up when I was listening, just because, God, I've been president for 10 years of the Arbors. So the conversation came up about the sewer and how it ties into ours. So I don't know if you're aware, and I know this was brought up by me 10 years ago, but who can remember that far? We have a lot of issues with the sewers in the Arbors, specifically at 41 Hillendale, where it exits. That house is on the market, $4 million house, it's very nice. I've been in it. It's notorious for having sewage come out of the backyard, just come right up at various times. That requires that the Arbors, by village rule, is required to pay to have, I think it's 4 manhole covers to access, and we have to jet it twice a year. That has backed up, I believe, twice. The owner of 41 Hillendale, Matt, has taken it upon himself to also hire people to come when the months when the Arbors doesn't do it. He runs the softball team I play on, that's how I know him. And that was sort of the first conversation that we had about it. I remember the first weekend I became board president, I got a phone call from the previous owner screaming at me, and I had no idea what was going on because he had a graduation party and there was sewage coming out of the backyard. That was my second day as president. What I'm trying to say here is that is what's going on for the last 10 years without someone adding by being there. And so having someone to really look at this, to make sure that it can really handle it, and that maybe that responsibility or the benefit of 41 Hillendale is not just our responsibility, that it's a joint responsibility to make sure that those lines are clear. Because if they have an additional 200 plus people or more, it's gonna be 400 people living there, plus working there, 500 people using the bathrooms. I'm guessing, unlike an office building that was there previously, where it was at different times, we weren't there using the bathroom, people are using the bathroom at the same time we're using the bathroom, because now it's all residential. And so I'm nervous that there's gonna be an increased problem, and this is not a reason to not do this project, but certainly, the residents of Hillendale shouldn't have to live with that, and it doesn't back up into our community, it backs up into theirs, specifically that house. So I wanted to bring it to everyone's attention here, because that just sounds terrible.
Yeah. Mike, are we aware of this, or, sounds like there's a history.
So our consultant, AI Engineers, is reviewing the sanitary sewer numbers, and they've been in contact with John Myers engineers, and they're reviewing that. 41 Hillendale, yes, there is a maintenance plan in place to prohibit these things from happening, and that's why that agreement is in place, or that requirement is that is their last two manholes where the entire sewer system empties out into the villages. So that's why that requirement is in there, to maintain and monitor that location, to camera it and clean it X number of times a year. I'm here 20 years. There have been maybe one or two backups in that location. Okay? Before my time, I can't tell you, but that's why that agreement is there. That's why that responsibility
Is
is
this all
there.
gravity flow, Michael?
I'm sorry?
It's all gravity flow.
Yes, it's all gravity.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Unless there are any other comments from the public, what we will do is we will continue reviewing this application next month. Hopefully, we'll get some closure on some of the outstanding issues that need to be addressed before we can come to a vote on this and approve the site plan. And we'll keep the public hearing open in the event that the public has additional comments regarding the application. And we'll come to closure next month so that we can get on to building this project, which I think everyone would like to have done.
Very much appreciate that, and Mike, if you can send us that task force memo when you get your hands on it.
emailed Steve.
We will respond or do whatever we need to, and we look forward to seeing you next month. And George, in the interim, I will remind you and Jen, we need to just make sure that the Board of Trustees closes out the secret.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Mr. Chairman.
Jenny an email, whatever you want.
I have been thinking about this, and I know you're gonna tell me that I am totally off the road on the subject. I like this project. I like what the applicant is doing. I like the Sunrise experience, and I would like to see this project move. And I was thinking about it. You know, I came from the construction all my life on the government side, so I always dealt with some sort of incentive at the beginning called some sort of a performance bond, where we would require an applicant to put a bond. And I don't mean a full-scale bond where you go for 100% of the construction cost. But I would like to see some sort of a small incentive bond that would be tied to either start of construction or completion of demolition in the range of about 10%, 15% of the total construction budget. So that once the village issues the permit, construction permit, which hopefully could be done soon, that within a certain period of time, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, the applicant would start the construction, and then maybe within the 3 months, they will finish the demolition. And I would like to see some kind of an incentive. Now, you may say that that's not possible, that's not legal, that's not part of the amendment, the board should have done that a long time ago, but we lost 4 years. And I hate to see us lose another 4 years. I mean, there is a big penalty to the village. Would a small incentive change anything? Probably not, but it would make me feel at ease that I try my best.
Yeah. I
I'm
guess-
going to leave it at that.
Well, I guess, John, my response to that is, I don't know generally what they do in these things, but my sense is that unlike the original applicant, Sunrise is actually a manager of these facilities.
Right.
They have an incentive to have this project completed as soon as possible, because that's how they make money. And if that's not an incentive, I don't know what is. So I can definitely see such a bond being appropriate when you're dealing with a developer that doesn't really have the long-term stake in the development of the project, and it's easy for them to just put things off because it's not economically feasible, which is exactly what happened to this project. But now I think we're in a different situation where we're dealing with a serious player in our village who's going to be owning and operating a facility and generating an income from that facility. I guess I'm not saying that John's point isn't relevant. It's probably worth consideration, but I mean, my view is that the incentives are probably built into the project.
So I'm going to respond very briefly, somewhat cavalierly, but somewhat seriously. I'm gonna let George and your village attorney advise you on what you can and cannot do. as a
This is
matter-
that subject
Right,
to
right.
review by the village.
We are we are aware
I
of that.
started my conversation
George
with
is
that.
hoping that I'll do it, but I'm not gonna do it. But Mr. Grzan, I got a great idea. You wanna help incentivize this, which we totally appreciate. When I have to go deal with the Westchester County IDA and the town of Rye to help finalize the pilot incentivization.
We'll be there.
You're coming with me.
We'll be.
We're gonna do that together.
Yep.
Because if you wanna help incentivize this project, that's where you should do it with me.
I think it's a beautiful project, and I just like to see it go, and I don't want to see us another 4 years, and you come back 3 months after 3 months and ask for an extension. That would be
Agreed.
really,
And
yeah.
if you could also control interest rates and the market, that would be a helpful.
Now you're asking too
No,
much.
that's different,
John
different
can
kind
do a
of
lot of
management.
things. Who knows? All right, anyway, thank you, gentlemen.
So
Appreciate it.
I guess it's anonymous. My ID was struck down, right? I just want to make sure that I understand that.
I think actually in the village board resolution, there is a performance bond required.
Yeah, that's what I
There's
said.
not a time frame, so I think what you.
You wanna use the mic? I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
So,
Doesn't
believe
work,
or not,
so
I
it
sort of
doesn't
remember-
matter.
I know it's legal because I have done it all my life, so I know the
Right ahead.
performance bonds are
Actually,
legal.
the village board made them put they have a requirement of a performance bond. I think that'll be at the time of getting a building permit. I think the one thing that there isn't, which I think is what you were trying to say, is they don't have a time period where they have to start
Right.
Yes,
construction.
that's what I want to do.
So, I don't know, and I'm sure Sunrise, and maybe at some point, they'll be gracious enough to tell us, but if you remember, one of the things about the demolition is we wanted it to be done when school is out, because it's so close to the school.
Right.
So, I don't know if they have a time frame yet, because I think they're the contract vendee, but it probably would be helpful at some point to get some kind of construction schedule from them. But the only thing you could do as a board is put a time frame. I've seen boards do this, it's not the greatest, but a time frame when you have to start, and if you don't, they'd have to come back and just explain why they haven't started by.
That's already in effect. We do that,
You do have that.
right.
But, Ms. Snyder, I did ask for construction schedule last meeting,
Right.
and I did mention to Mike, construction management plan, if it does not have a construction schedule, to me, it's not a plan.
Right, it was probably a very, at the time, in 2020, it was probably a rough one.
It's al-
because
it's
They
also-
really didn't have a lot of planning.
Also, as long as what they can do is subject to third-party approvals, which is, I think, your point, I think it's very difficult to come up with a plan. I mean, they can come up with a theoretical plan that once they get the approvals, this is how they want to proceed. But I think in terms of when it actually, in terms of setting a date, I imagine that could be difficult because they don't have any control over some of these agencies that they need
I
approvals
totally
from.
agree, I think that's what David's point was,
Yeah.
a valid one.
Yeah.
I mean, he
And,
can't
and I don't agree for a minute, pardon me, that we need to have a demolition outside the school year. I mean, buildings, and there's construction going on all over around, so I don't think that the demolition of the building should bother the kids in the classroom. The noise level should not be that high, that's gonna bother anybody.
I don't want to speak, I don't want to speak because I know that is a big concern of the parents that have been here.
Where we have
and-
problem with the construction is when applicant or the contractor does not communicate with the people that are living nearby and tell them in advance what's going to happen, how is it going to happen, and what's to inspect. And to me, that's the part of the construction management plan. 50% of that what's written is interaction and communication.
Right.
If you are upfront, people will accept it and they will move on.
We're hopeful
Okay.
that Sunrise will.
I
coordinate.
Yeah,
don't think that's
I think,
relevant
I think
now.
everyone is incentivized to do the right thing. You want happy neighbors.
So no bond, right?
Thank you all.
No bond.
Okay. I'm glad.
Have a
you-
nice holiday,
I'm glad
whichever
didn't
you
have
celebrate.
to because I didn't have-
Our next applicant is 123 North Ridge Street. Mr. Scarlato, you are up.
David?
Let me email Steve.
Please.
You got it.
why would we not have some performance bond? Why would we not have a performance?
I don't know.
I have done about the construction in New York City.
Hey, Mike?
IDA loan currently on the building?
I have no idea. I'm not part of that discussion. I don't-
I'm not sure how I feel about it. I think
Okay.
it depends on the way they are going to demolish it.
Are they
And
trying to get in?
I agree with you that they're going to have to meet with people anyway.
That's with them and Chris.
It's the same circle.
Rob, is there any chance we're going to get out of here by 9 o'clock, do you think?
That's gonna take time.
So we'll be out here by 9 o'clock.
That's the problem.
Yeah? Yeah,
I think so.
okay.
What you-
So, uh, all right, John, ready? To your, excuse me, to your letter, I think the general consensus is that we are in agreement with you about
About what?
about the plan, the revised in order to address all of these variances.
Going to Florida.
We agree with your aesthetic sense on that.
Okay, so do you wanna see what it looks like with the aesthetics and then actually working?
Yes, that was going to be my request.
Okay, I'll put on the screen what I sent, right?
Yeah.
That's probably helpful, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think our effort is to the extent the variances can be minimized, we try to do that within reason, but we want an aesthetically pleasing project. And we are confident that if you do the best you can, we'll back you with that. Sorry.
Okay, so, and I get where you're coming from, because it's good to see, if you eliminated stuff, what the verdict is. So what I did to eliminate it was, the point was shift the second floor over. The house isn't that big, it's only 24 feet wide, so it's like, I can't like take 2 feet out of the house, because it's really a limited house as it is. So I had cantilevered it, I moved the front porch over, and then, we cut the deck back, the porch back, and we just did the roof over the side. And the house does look a little strange if you're driving by, and especially if you're in the park across the street, it definitely looked a little it didn't look as good as it did. So,
So you're saying you will not get an architectural review award? Huh?
I'm not getting some kind of wonderful, nomination for this, most likely. And unfortunately, also, it's on a busy street where people actually drive by this house. So if I'm gonna have a house that's not looking really good, this isn't probably the location to do it.
I think we like,
I mean,
as
it's
Rob
down
said,
in,
we like your
2 acres
strategy.
Where nobody sees it, if a client, if you can get away with doing a house that's not real attractive. All right, so then, with my letter, and I had talked to Mike, and he said that's kind of where you were leaning. I said, the parking, I totally understood.
Right. That I don't think we we didn't have, at least I didn't have, and our consultants didn't have an issue with the parking.
Right, so we moved the parking to the side, that makes more sense, so that was where I was the whole time anyway. So now what we did on this one is, we left the house open, the addition over the second floor, I left the front porch where it was, we still pulled the deck back, because then we're within our square footage of the size of the deck. And this one shows the height setback line, so if I actually blow this up.
This is the revised.
This is the revised one,
Right,
which
okay.
is going back to kind of what I had before. It still kept the deck moved over,
What's the overall height of the building?
and this,
By the code, if you measure it by the code, what is the overall height? Is it more than 30 feet or less than 30 feet?
no, we're not, the total height of the building works, the total, I brought my board so I could actually see. Total height of the building is, we're allowed 30, we're at like 28.25. So the main height of the building works. The problem is the height setback doesn't work on the left side because
Sure.
we're already 2 feet into our setback. So this is how much it cuts through the roof. Like it's right in here. So it's not like it's, that's on the side of the house. So that's where the number's off by the 2. is as it cuts through the eave of the house. So,
Can you show that to the zoning board when you're before them?
yeah, yeah.
Can that piece be made like a flap? It goes down during the day and so it moves.
I mean, it would screw up the inside of the house if I actually have to cut the end off, so it's kind of like, I don't think anybody drive by this house is going to, and the neighbor next door is really gonna be like, oh my god, it's a little too tall. It's really, like, for the height line that it's cutting through, it's not missing by that much, and it's really
Your front porch is still extending into the scenic overlay, right?
correct. The whole
But-
house is in the scenic.
Yeah,
overlay.
okay, so,
Plus,
Right.
and I'm adding the porch into it, but I just think the
Yeah.
porch makes more sense, and it does
Absolutely.
relate to the other houses
Yeah.
that are there.
Okay.
And also realize the scenic overlay increased the setback. So
yes.
when this house was built, you know, that part of it was conforming. Why the side yard isn't conforming, I don't know, but.
I personally like this plan,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it's,
Yeah.
it's,
And we tried to keep the house soft.
I think you're doing it, yeah.
well, I think it's better than the other one.
I know, but I understand, you asked if you tried to do it, what would you encounter, and that's what we would encounter, so I
Right.
think.
It was a good intellectual
Yeah,
exercise.
there you go.
But no, I mean, this is practical.
Todd appreciated it.
Yeah.
Todd in my office appreciated drawing it twice, not kidding. I mean, when he emailed back to me, he was like, this is just horrible.
Well, this is, I mean, look, whatever the, I think it's a very reasonable plan. I think it's something that when we
Yeah.
refer it to the zoning board, our comments would be, we think that the variances should be granted to make the house into an aesthetic pleasing house that's consistent with the architecture in the neighborhood and not some oddball
Yeah,
structure out
Right,
there.
right, because there's enough houses in that row that have bad additions on them,
Now,
which we're not trying to copy.
Right.
I mean, some of them are really nicely done, there's a few there that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
can we, I guess the public hearing is open, so you will not close the public hearing until you get the feedback. Can you close the public hearing before you get feedback from the zoning board?
business.
Yeah, no, we have to set a public hearing. You're talking about this application,
Yes.
right?
We need
Yeah,
to
with
set
this
one, right?
application.
We never made one.
Oh, we did not set a public hearing yet?
You wanted me to
Well,
work
why am I
harder
reading a
on it
resolution
before
here?
you
Oh, that
would
was,
do it.
okay,
That's a-
that's for tonight.
Okay, so what we'll do is based on these plans, which, Sarah will review and Mike will review. But I don't see any reason why we can't set a public hearing for these plans
Neither do I.
for next month.
Okay.
And also make a referral to the ZBA. And then, you'll make your pitch to them, but, when I was speaking to someone who formerly was on the ZBA, if it's a reasonable request based on, how something should be constructed, the ZBA is a little open to this, so.
Well, I also have the other set I can show.
That's true. That's true. I don't think I have a problem.
Can we make a referral, today to the
Yeah,
ZBA?
yeah,
That's what
I
would
think we'll do
recommend
that.
yeah.
So I guess, first, we have a referral resolution.
Hold on one second.
Yeah, we're getting the June date.
Okay.
It's gonna have to be June, because by the time
Oh.
in order for them to be on air, on zoning, they have to apply the month before.
Oh, Christ. Okay.
So have I missed the deadline, or, I don't know,
I don't know.
that's a terror.
Because you're applying now for
I mean,
May.
I know the application's already in, and the money's already paid, and there's already a form in for the old variances, which I will have to correct.
correct, but they
So-
gotta give you a new
But,
letter
but
of
it's
disapproval.
whether Tara can do it, and whether it's
Steve.
the noticing.
Yeah.
Oh. Steve would have to regenerate.
Well, because
his
he's gonna have to give you a new letter of denial based on this new plan.
Well, actually, maybe not, because I could notice for more variances than I needed, and then just have them striked out. Right, 'cause I eliminated the front yard parking.
There,
I mean, we have to see if if I missed the mailing deadline and she missed the public notice, that's our issue.
Right. Well, in
But normally-
in our resolution, we don't know often when the ZBA meets, so we can just simply
May
issue
6th.
the referral resolution and you can work it out.
May 6th is the next meeting.
Yeah, it's the second Tuesday, second
All right.
Tuesday of the month.
It's the first Tuesday.
What, first Tuesday, that's right, the first Tuesday.
Okay, so if we make a referral now, they'll see it, they'll deal with it in
Today's
May.
September. I mean, I think we could actually be on the next meeting if I,
Right,
if I like get the stuff done like by tomorrow or Monday.
yeah.
I'll check.
But that's, but the mechanics of it, I honestly don't know, in terms of whether you need, I mean, do you need a denial with the specific variances that,
You do.
Yes.
Yes.
How do-
The notices are.
that's the problem?
Notice has to be the
Yeah.
exact variance.
Okay,
So-
so how do we do that?
So, yes, to get a
Steve
letter
has-
of denial
Steve
from
has to
the
generate-
building.
Okay, so Steve will look at these plans that you're presenting us now, and he'll provide you, how much in advance do they need that?
Month in advance.
Is,
The deadline is the month prior.
okay, all right,
I mean, we can only do what we can do. So
Yeah.
if you
Sounds like
set the
it's-
public hearing, we would just delay it if I can't get to zoning.
well, we can
before.
set the public hearing, and then if you want to adjourn it until such a time as the ZBA approves it, then we'll just adjourn it. Okay, all right, so do we have a
And then we could always extend it.
We have a
Right.
resolution.
We'll just do May 8th, and then we'll just extend it.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So what should we do first, the ZBA referral?
Yes.
Okay, let's do the ZBA referral.
That's what I need first.
Therefore be resolved. Can we wing it?
Yeah.
You could just make I don't know how you guys do it with the resolutions, but you could just make a motion to refer to the
Fine.
ZBA.
Fine.
But
Let's do
so
that.
I understand then, it's the plans being presented tonight.
Yeah,
Can we,
tonight.
for the record, is there a plan number or something we could just clarify? Because typically, when you refer to the ZBA, you want it to be as close to something as final as possible, because you don't want it to go to the ZBA and then while you're at planning board, it changes. So if this is what we think is as close to final as possible, I would just want, for the record, to be very clear what drawing we're looking at, because I don't think what we just saw was necessarily what was accompanied that letter.
It wasn't what was presented last
Yeah.
month.
Yeah.
So the new one. is
But George, I like to see the planning board input in the referral.
Yeah, well,
We looked at the first plan, the applicant revised those plans, and we don't believe that the second plans,
Yeah.
well, you know what we
I
can
can
do?
submit a set right now.
You know what we can
I
do?
have
We
a
can,
set.
we can either move for a referral, or we can, and then, I mean, sometimes afterwards, you'll come up with the right language. And
exactly.
then it'll go to the ZBA, so we don't have to figure out the language tonight, but.
But you can give your input, for sure. You
Give
could
our input,
make
we
the
can give our
motion to
input.
refer to the ZBA,
Right.
this is what our thoughts are.
Exactly.
And then the resolution will just track all that after the
Yes,
fact.
yes.
That's
And-
fine.
And I guess our feeling is that is that
Day 1 through 8/10.
yeah, is that this proposal, minimizes to the degree possible, the variances that, that we recommend the plan, because the variances have been, are minimized to the degree that they can be, as a and still maintain an aesthetically pleasing, site plan that's conforms with the structures of the neighborhood, something like that.
and I like to basically say that, with the input from the planning board, the applicant revised the plans, which clearly are not as aesthetically pleasing as the as these plans that we are submitting now for the
Right.
review by the zoning board.
Right. In fact, we can go so far as that we reviewed plans that attempted to address all the variances, and, we concluded that the revised plan is
Our
more
recommend-
appropriate. We'll figure it out. We'll figure
Sure,
out.
we
the
can
line.
figure, but you guys
Get
could
the
still make
second.
that motion as long as it's on the record. And do we have a drawing number or
So
Yeah,
A1
what did
to
you s-
A10,
A1 to A10
and drawing L1,
and drawing L1
revised 4/10/25.
revised 4/10/25, just for the record, so that it's very cler what is being referred.
Right.
Now, in terms of the denial letter, that's a separate issue, that happens in the background.
That happens in the
But
background,
it does
yeah.
have to be updated so that the exact variances are known
Right.
and the public notices are
Yeah, John
given
will,
accordingly.
John will deal with that. But, so anyways, can we just have a motion? Okay, okay, I need a second to.
You can make a
move.
motion
Get
to
the
refer to the
Motion that
ZBA with
we
the
refer
conditions.
this application to the zoning board.
Got it.
Second,
The- Yeah,
Yeah, with the considerations that you
Yes.
guys had
Sub-
discussed.
Yeah, subject to the,
Mhm.
Mr. Grzan,
yes,
Mr. Mendelson,
Yes.
Ms. Schoen,
yes.
Chairman Goodman.
yes,
Thank you.
okay. And then we have a resolution to set a public hearing for the next, let's do it next month.
I make a recommendation, the motion that we open up the public hearing on this application.
Yeah. Well.
On May
you have a
8th.
You have an actual resolution.
On May 8th, 2025. Okay. Whereas the applicants, Kevin Miller and Emily Miller, submitted an application for approval of a site plan for the construction of a second floor addition, new front porch, new rear deck on the property located at 123 North Ridge Street, located in the R10 zoning district and the North Ridge Street Scenic Overlay District. Now therefore be it resolved, the planning board will hold a public hearing on May 8th, 2025 at 6:30 in Village Hall. Be it further resolved that the applicant is hereby directed to comply with Section 250-40 of the Village Code regarding notification of the public hearing.
Motion and second?
Moved,
Second,
Mr. Grzan,
yes,
Mr. Mendelson.
Yes.
Ms. Schoen,
yes.
Chairman Goodman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and next up.
Next up, next up is 35 Meadowlark Road.
Yeah,
We're back to change the
oh,
driveway
I remember that.
right,
because we can't move, Con Ed can't move the utility pole
right.
because the wires aren't all on the same side of the street, they're across the street, the way it works, this is not possible to do. So we're here to revise the site plan. We wanted to bring the driveway up a little further on the road because where it is right now, we have the curve and working with the grades. So we prefer the driveway to be further up the road where it straightens out as opposed to being right on the curve. So the proposal is to bring the driveway to above the pole and then turn into the house and then come down and turn into the driveway. And then create a slight K-turn so you can back out of the garage and go up the driveway, so you can pull out of the driveway as opposed to backing out onto the road. So that's the only change. To be perfectly honest, it's less impervious than the straight wide driveway because the straight wide driveway was 2 lane wide
Right.
totally up the thing, and this is now 1 lane coming in and then it fans out.
Right.
So
And
we're
the-
actually less impervious than we were before,
Right.
so there's less blacktop, and actually I think it's gonna look better, a little
Right.
more interesting and better. And then we had a landscaping plan, we were doing a slate retaining wall and then some landscaping. And I know the review comments were, some of the landscaping should be different.
Yeah, yes.
Well,
it's
just
very
native
odd.
species, right?
Yeah,
Well, I think also in size, right?
Height,
Yeah, and some height.
a little bit of height and species.
Yeah, to change the species to some native species and add a little height to screen that turnaround
5 to
area.
8 feet, right?
I mean,
What
Yeah.
kind of evergreens did you have in mind?
I really just care about them being native species. I just really would prefer native species. I don't have a specific one in mind when we made the recommendation.
Could you give me some suggestions of different ones, like email me later or something? Like,
Sure, I can give you some
At
suggestions.
least
Yeah.
some concepts of the ones you like, because that
Yeah.
just makes my life easier.
I
As far as the hydrangeas go, I was thinking oak leaf hydrangeas because they're natural or
Okay.
native and they're a higher height at full maturity.
Okay, I mean, it's good to know, so I'd like to have your,
And I can give you a recommendation on an evergreen as well.
okay, no, I'd appreciate a bunch of different ones that you think are good, because
Okay.
because I like to do kind of a variety as opposed to having everything look boring,
Yeah.
like a straight line.
So, right.
yeah. Now, does anyone have any comment about the driveway itself? how
No,
it's been
I think it's great.
reconfigured? I mean, that turnaround is only a turnaround.
Hmm?
It's the only turnaround, it's not big enough to fit a car, so it's not
That's
parking.
right.
I reviewed that with Steve,
Yeah,
because I delayed us a little bit on getting here, because he had to make sure that it didn't meet parking.
right.
Because I didn't want to go for a variance, which is fine. It's really just so you can back out of the driveway, and then back out of the garage and turn, because
Yeah.
they plan on using the garage
Yeah.
for cars.
The gas line, did the gas line have any comment on this at all? Tennessee,
I mean,
It's outside of the jurisdiction
Right, I'm not on the easement, and the driveway's actually further from where the easement was. I mean, they're happy that we got the driveway off their easement.
Okay.
Yeah, so this.
But they are aware of what you're doing
They
here?
they are, and the house is pretty much up, so.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
The inspector, I think, was also on site.
They had to have months, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it ended up not being as concerning as it was that first meeting, yeah.
No, but that was, that was good.
Right.
I mean, we went, the.
Oh, yeah.
Originally, John sort of proposed it to Mike. Mike brought it to our attention. We had a discussion about it. He tried a couple of designs. So really, you know, in coming here, you know, this is a design that everyone sort of had a
Yeah.
consensus that it was pretty good. Addressed a lot of the concerns that we had, so I'm glad you share our sense. It's a good plan. Any other comments? Okay, we can set a public hearing for this for next month. too.
Perfect, and I'll fix the landscape plan for that.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas the applicants, Scott and Stacy Schwartz, submitted an application for approval of an amended site plan proposing the addition of a second floor, a side addition of a two-car garage, and a new front porch and rear deck, and a relocation of the driveway on the existing dwelling located at 35 Meadowlark Road. Now therefore be it resolved, the planning board will hold a public hearing on May 8th, 2025 at 6:30 in Village Hall. Be it further resolved that the applicant is hereby directed to comply with section 2050-40 of the Village Code regarding notification of public hearing.
Motion and a second?
Moved.
Second?
Mr. Guzan?
Yes.
Mr. Mendelson?
Yes.
Ms. Schoen?
Yes.
Chairman Goodman?
Yes.
Thank you.
See you next month.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, John.
See you next month.
Thanks, John.
Good work.
I have a lot of signs to put up.
Yeah.
And that's what it is.
Good. All right.
All right.
Motion second to adjourn?
Yeah.
Motion, second?
Motion second.
All in
Second.
favor?
All in
Aye.
favor?
Any opposed?
Michael, whatever happened to the grant that you were applying for?
Which one? There's
When
there's
I-
a number of ones.
Oh,
So,
The-
the last one that I asked for a whole ton of signatures was for the street sweeper, which I did get 375,000 for $450,000 sweeper. So that we were awarded, so thank you. We have a $986,000 grant for relining sewers that we got from Jamal Bowman's office. That's in the process right now. I have to go through the permit process. So I kinda got screwed up because EPA has to review it, and that's federal, and.
They don't exist
kinda screwed
anymore.
Everything up. So, the now grant that I sent out just recently, that is for North Ridge Street.
Right, the
upgrades
repaving,
and
right,
For pedestrian
right.
crossing at Crawford Park.
right.
To do flashing beacons, crosswalk signs, you know, maybe a little hump. That's what I was applying for. So that we submitted the other day. I won't know until December.
Okay.
So that's 950,000.
Good for you, man.
So,
Yeah, good.
Good, excellent.
you know, we got $50,000 to do tree inventory
Really clean.
of our trees. We got 50,000 for that. We got